John Loftus is the author of The Belarus Secret, now republished as America's Nazi Secret. He claims that powerful American families financed both sides during World War II. Mr. Loftus is our special guest today on Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. Well, welcome once again to Politics and Religion. I don't think you're going to want to go away because we have an absolutely fascinating guest with us on the program today. Mr. John Loftus is the author of a book called The Belarus Secret, which has recently been republished under the title America's Nazi Secret. Now, the reason this is so important is because when The Belarus Secret was published, there were many of the things that were classified which now then have been released. So there are things in the new edition, America's Nazi Secret, that were not allowed under the censorship laws of the United States of America. That sounds sort of strange. I didn't think we were supposed to have those things, but apparently we have, and John's going to tell us all about it. So we want to welcome today to our program Mr. John Loftus. Hello, John, and welcome.
Well, thank you. Glad to be on.
So nice to be with you today. Now, you're the author of several books. Please tell our audience about some of those things that you've done.
Well, I was an Army officer and worked in some covert operations. Then I ended up, after law school, working for the Attorney General of the United States. And during the Carter and Reagan administrations, I worked at the headquarters in Washington of the Justice Department, handled CIA cases and Nazi war crimes cases. And one day I discovered that many of the Nazis that I'd been assigned to prosecute were on the CIA payroll. But the CIA didn't know about their Nazi background. They'd been dumped there by the British Secret Service, and unfortunately it was a communist double agent. We thought we were getting anti-communist freedom fighters. Instead, he was sending us the dregs of the Nazi war criminals. And it wasn't just European Nazis that we were getting. We also got the Arab Nazis, and that's a little strange for people to think about. But the Arab Nazi group, founded in 1928, was called the Muslim Brotherhood. And if that name sounds familiar, it is, because that's the group that's trying to take over Egypt right now after President Mubarak has stepped down.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you bring up the Muslim Brotherhood at this critical time. Could you give our audience a little bit of a background as to the history of the Muslim Brotherhood?
Sure. A lot of the stuff I'm going to be telling your audience may sound unbelievable, but just write down these two words and then Google them or check them on the internet. The first word is Bana, B-A-N-N-A, Bana, and the second word is Nazi. And you'll find more, Googling those two words, than is in the entire CIA archives, because the CIA's files for the Muslim Brotherhood have been shredded. The Muslim Brotherhood started off as a Nazi organization founded by Hassan al-Banna, who was a devout admirer of Hitler. In heaven, Allah, on earth, Hitler. And he had 750,000 Arab Nazi members in the Muslim Brotherhood. They did some terrible things during the war, but none of them were ever tried at Nuremberg, because the British Secret Service hired them after the war and hid them back in Egypt, along with their German intelligence controllers. So the Muslim Brotherhood was the only portion of the Third Reich that never stood trial at Nuremberg.
So,
British...
So, John,
Yep.
are you telling us that the Muslim Brotherhood, that many people believe will play a very significant role, if not a controlling role, in Egypt, now with the overthrow of Mubarak, are you telling us that they're Nazis today, or they used to be Nazis? What are you saying exactly?
Yeah, that their ideology was so extreme that Hitler loved them. And their ideology is the same now as it was when they were funded by the Third Reich. It is exactly the same. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood are very adept at lying. They learned that from the German propagandists. And they have convinced papers like the New York Times that they're really a moderate organization, and they embrace all, strands, and they're really pro-democracy. In fact, the Muslim Brotherhood, its core principle, it's a theocratic organization, and its core religious principle is that democracy is a sin against Allah, that men should not be free to choose their own leaders. The clerics should choose their leaders for them because the clerics are inspired by God.
So they don't believe in democracy, they believe in a theocracy.
Precisely. That's the core of it. Now, this is a heresy against Islam. In fact, the theocratic core, the theocracy of the Muslim Brotherhood, called Salafism, or in Saudi Arabia they call it Wahhabism, but Salafism is the term that most scholars use. That's been declared as a heresy more than 60 times by the Islamic scholars before 1900. It is a cult. So the saying is that the Muslim Brotherhood is to Islam as the Ku Klux Klan is to Christianity. So you wouldn't join the Ku Klux Klan if you wanted to advance the cause of civil rights. And no one joins the Muslim Brotherhood because they'd want to advance the cause of democracy.
Well, it appears our government right now is saying that the Muslim Brotherhood is a rather moderate organization, and they believe they should be included in the new government of Egypt when it's formed. So are our leaders duped, or are they willing participants here?
The answer is yes and no. President Obama has said we will not negotiate with the Muslim Brotherhood, we'll have nothing to do with them, and the Defense Department agrees, and two agencies in the U.S. government are in revolt. And that's the State Department, and sad to say, my old agency, the Justice Department. They're the ones putting out this false story that the Muslim Brotherhood is a moderate group. And they're absolutely doing it behind President Obama's back and against the will of Congress.
Okay.
It is a mutiny.
Now, John, I know this is a little bit off the subject, but I think this is what everybody's really wanting to know right now. So if you take Wahhabism, you take the Muslim Brotherhood, and then you take the Ayatollahs of Iran and all of the unrest that's sweeping through the Middle East right now, are you in a position to make any sense of all this? Who's who? Are they all the same? Are they different? What's going on here?
Boy, that's a great question. And I'm going to give you my understanding of the theology is. About 20% of the people in the Arabian world are believers of this extreme Salafist sect. And they're the ultra, beyond the Puritans in Christianity. They're the Ku Klux Klan types. And they've never gotten more than 20% in election, not the Taliban in Pakistan or Afghanistan, not the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, not their cousin organization in Jordan, not even Hamas. Hamas ran about 20% of the vote in Gaza until they were the only opposition party to the Palestinian Liberation Organization. That's how they got elected. The Muslim Brotherhood believes in democracy only once to get in power, and then never again. So what you have is the Arab extremists are Salafists, but the theocracy argument is beloved by their traditional enemy, the Iranian Shiites, because in the Shiite religion it was considered a heresy to have a cleric run a government. But so they borrowed this chapter from the Nazis and said, no, okay, we'll go along with that. So the Ayatollah Khomeini, the original founder, really thought the Muslim Brotherhood was a very important group and that its religious underpinnings were exactly what he believed in. So in other words, the cause of Nazism that began in the Arab world during World War II and caused this heresy, yes, it did spread to non-Arab Persians in Iran and throughout the Arab world, and it's still around about 20% today. But never worry about having a free and fair election. The Muslim Brotherhood did get 20% of the vote in Egypt, but then in the next election, they dropped from 88 seats in Parliament down to 0. Now, what caused the difference? President Mubarak, one of the few things he ever did right, was to put on a documentary TV show telling the history of the Muslim Brotherhood. How many Egyptian leaders they assassinated. They were behind Anwar Sadat's assassination, King Farouk's assassination, that they were collaborators with the Nazis, that they were ruining the tourist trade with all the bombings. And he played that during Ramadan, the holy month when everyone's staying home, fasting, and they all watch TV. So the Egyptian people know that the Muslim Brotherhood was really despicable. So how come the Muslim Brotherhood was the only opposition party that Mubarak allowed to run for office? Well, because they were so bad that people would rather vote for Mubarak than let in the Muslim Brotherhood. So it was a very clever scheme.
So are you saying now that the overriding majority of the Egyptian people are not likely to vote for the Muslim Brotherhood, and therefore there's a chance that Egypt will in fact get a true democratic election when those elections are held supposedly in 6 months or so?
Yes, I believe that to be the case, and so do the Egyptian newspaper writers that I've been reading. They're saying that the Muslim Brotherhood are kind of like a fringe group. They're wingnuts like the Marxists or the Nasserites. No one pays any real attention to them anymore.
Well,
So, in other words, the New York Times and our State Department are the ones that have been patting the Muslim Brotherhood in the back and building them up, so to speak.
Well, now, the Muslim Brotherhood gave birth to Hamas, and yet Iran today is funding Hamas. How do we put that together?
Well, as I said, Iran liked the Muslim Brotherhood, and they saw funding Hamas as a way of getting in good with the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas, by the way, is still the official chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine, and it still gives the Nazi salute. You know, this is a dedicated organization that hates Americans, hates Jews, hates Christians, and hates democracy and hates Western culture.
Okay, stop.
Exactly the same as the Nazi ideology.
Wait a minute, John. Did I hear you say that the Hamas in Gaza today give the Nazi salute?
Still do. Yep, that's their official salute. You know the Heil Hitler salute with the arm upraised? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, go to the internet. You'll see lots of film clips of them doing that in their parades.
Absolutely.
Where do you think they got it from? And it's hard, people use a horrible word, Islamofascism, as if Islam was inherently fascistic. It's not. It's this crazy cult, this heresy. And those guys aren't Islamofascists. They're just the second generation of the original Nazi party, of the Arab movement. They were taught this hatred by their daddies who were World War II Nazis.
I heard that the Nazis fought on the side of Adolf Hitler during World War II, and that one of the key participants ended up going back to Jerusalem and was the top Arab leader in Jerusalem after World War II. Is that true?
That's true. He was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and he was the ambassador during World War II of the Muslim Brotherhood to Berlin. And Hitler loved this guy. He sat him down for private audience. Now, a lot of people will try and say, well, Hitler never knew about the Holocaust. There's no document where his name is on it. And that's nonsense. A protocol, the written minutes of his meetings with the Muslim Brotherhood survive. And in that meeting, Hitler said, I will tell you this secret, that my real purpose in fighting this war is to destroy all the Jews in the world, and lock that secret away in your heart.
John, hold it right there. We're up against
Sure.
we're up against a break. We'll be right back. We're talking today to John Loftus, author of America's Nazi Secret.
Every Monday at 9 p.m. Central on the Church Channel and at 10 p.m. Central on Daystar, Irvin Baxter presents End of the Age. End of the Age is a 30-minute program which gives intricate details about how Bible prophecy is not only true, but also how it lines up so perfectly with events going on in the world right now. Don't miss one End of the Age program every Monday at 9 p.m. Central on the Church Channel and at 10 p.m. Central on Daystar. Visit endtime.com for more details or call 1-800-ENDTIME.
When you think about Bible prophecy or the end of the world, what comes to mind? War, destruction, famine, disease, 666, mark of the beast, antichrist, false prophet, four horsemen, trumpets, seals, and vials. What about 2012? How does all of this affect you as a teenager in today's world? Those are all good questions, but the thing to remember is that Bible prophecy was not put here for us to be afraid of it, but for us to know what is to come. When I was a kid, I used to pretend that I could see the future and predict